I am considered a lover, not a fighter. So I guess just being emotionally aware of how my words are impacting my audience, I think that that's very important for lawyers
Right.
in general. Ultimately, my favorite investment is in me because I can control the outcome.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Success in South Florida podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rossen, and on today's episode, we have Odelia Goldberg. Odelia is an attorney down here in South Florida. She handles estate planning and some other matters as well. And Odelia, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because, again, this episode is all about you, what makes you successful, all the great things that you've done in your life. So, Odelia, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Adam. I'm grateful and honored to be a part of your podcast here. My name is Odelia Goldberg. I'm an estate planning lawyer, and my practice is here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My practice is generally limited to non-confrontational law. So that leaves estate planning, uncontested probates, real estate transactions. So when people come together, I can get them to go. I am considered a lover, not a fighter. So when people are fighting with themselves or each other, I refer all that to the litigation attorneys of the world, and I handle contracts in general, or like I said, when people come together and they want to work together, then we can work together.
Right, right. And so here, at the Rossen Law Firm, all we do is litigation, being criminal defense lawyers. So that's all we're doing all day long is fighting and defending people. So completely different what we do and maybe some of our stresses or issues than what you do and what you work on. So that's fantastic. So, right. Maybe yours is probably, yeah, definitely a lot less stressful. Um,
Probably. Although, we deal with the uncomfortable emotion of death, whether it's probate or estate planning. So that's super triggering too, not to say that my type of law is easy peasy, it, generally could be. But death is super triggering for people. Yeah.
Right. It is. So before we even, you bring up a great point, but before we even get back kind of into your history, the way I like to start this, you do bring up a good point about being an attorney that has to talk about really uncomfortable things in your situation, death. So did anybody teach you how to deal with that? How did you learn?
I guess there's an aspect of emotional intelligence. Of course, it's much easier for me when people are in person. I get to read their body, cues, and I get to see if something's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's hard over the phone, but I guess I just, when I'm talking to someone, my focus is on that someone. I don't have so much going on up here in the way of, thinking, oh, do they like me? Or, well, what do they think about me? I'm not really engaged in that. I'm mostly concerned with making sure that I'm giving them the information that they need and I'm not triggering them to the point where they can no longer hear me or, they're getting mixed information. So I guess just being emotionally aware of how my words are impacting my audience, I think that that's very important for lawyers
Right.
in general.
But what you're saying is you had to learn it and deal with it yourself. You certainly didn't learn this in law school.
Right. Well, IBM, I worked for IBM for 18 years. So, and it's a great company to work for. They really invested a lot in their employees. And so I was lucky enough to get a lot of management training and a lot of support in my various roles at IBM. So I think that really helped me in my legal career as well. I definitely take a lot of what IBM taught me, and I apply it on a daily basis for sure.
So let's kind of get into that. Let's get into your journey. Okay. So where does your journey start? Let's take us back to Odelia as a child.
Oh my God. So this happens to be my third career. I started out as a model in my in my teens and my 20s, that kind of paid the bills for a while. And then as soon as I graduated from college, I started with IBM. It was my real first job. And my job was to be a project manager. So I don't know if you remember those e-business, signs everywhere. Well, that was our department. We kind of invented the internet over there.
Okay.
Al Gore said he invented it, but really IBM and my team did. We were in charge of the Victoria's Secret website. I don't know if you're probably much younger than me, but at some point it crashed and it was a big deal. We
Oh,
literally broke the internet. It was the first time that we have an online, anything to such a degree with so many people were logging on to see the Victoria's Secret, situation. So, and my job was also with New York Stock Exchange and Discover, Morgan Stanley. So those were my clients. And eventually, IBM paid for my MBA. They paid for part of my law degree. I became a lawyer while working for IBM. But throughout all that, they always invested, like I said, in their employees. And I got PMI certified. So I'm a certified project manager, which really helps me, kind of navigate any complex project, just honing those skills, obviously, and the HR, working with people with the management skills. So IBM was a great adventure for me. I always worked from home. Back in 1999, I was I called it working from bed, but um, I was always a remote employee and it was fabulous. And then in 2012, I purchased my first law practice from a retiring attorney, Stephen Squire, and I was still with IBM full time. And I found myself resenting the time with my IBM meetings. I was like, oh, I could be doing my own stuff over here. So I asked my manager for the next round of layoffs to be off the list. And she was like, you could probably retire. Let me look into it. So, we parted ways really beautifully in 2015. And at that point, I had bought three law practices from three retiring attorneys. So my business had really taken off. And, I focused it on the law side since. And, I love it. I love being a lawyer. I really do.
Well, so Adelia, that's, I mean, such an incredible journey. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show. But let's kind of take it back. And I really want to go piece by piece. So you said in your teens, you were a model. How did you fall into that? I mean, how does one even become a model in their teens? And let's talk about some of the great things that you learned. Let's talk about the good and the bad. And overall, how did that make you a better person, maybe a better business owner? Talk to us about that experience, because it's not every day that I get to interview somebody on this show who has had three different careers, let alone be a teen model.
So I grew up in Texas, and in Texas we all do pageants. It's not weird to be a pageant person when you're from Texas. So when you're in the pageant circuit, a lot of times they kind of recruit people from that world. Whether they're at the time they were also recruiting for Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. It wasn't like how it is now in the 80s. Well, everything was much smaller and much more contained. We didn't have the internet, so everything was kind of organically grown. So if J.C. Penney, which was where I kind of started, needed a model, they looked in their pool, in their talent pool. So I was a perfect size 6 at the time. Not now. Now I'm like not a size 6, but at those
I
times,
don't even know what that means. So
the sizes have changed, they've evolved. But at that time, I was a size 6. And so they would be able to make clothes that would fit me, and then they would know what, they would roll it out. So sometimes I remember my mom's friend was like, oh my gosh, that dress looks like it was made for you. And I was like, well, actually it
I'll tell you
was.
what, oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
I did a lot of catalog and a lot of runway, not so much print. You're not going to see me on the internet. Thank God. I was very mindful of my image even then. Yeah, it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun. Being a working model is something exciting. Yeah.
So what are some life lessons that you learned from that?
I mean, at a young age, you learned how to be, involved in the professional world. You have to be on time, you have to be available, you have to be welcoming, especially in Texas. Texas is a weird dynamic. Everyone is super friendly and super polite. So there was a lot of social norms that were kind of, instilled and built in with me. So even though I'm Israeli, I was born in Israel, my Texas roots definitely shine through for sure.
Okay, that's really good. What were some struggles or hurdles for you during this period?
I don't remember many struggles in my 20s. Do you? 20s seem like now I look back and I'm like,
Few,
what
but
am I
nothing
worried
too
about?
bad,
I had no
right?
problems. Yeah, I think just time management. I really wanted to do it all, right? I was like a super nerdy person, so I loved school and I loved learning. I wasn't like very social, so I just really was working hard and studying hard and doing all those things. So time management was probably my biggest struggle at the time, is making sure I had enough hours in the day to do all the things that I, kind of wanted to do. I was super ambitious then.
I still struggle with that today. I still do. So I definitely feel you.
Right.
Hey, and then how did you move from that? You said you graduated college. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at UT Austin for my
Okay.
undergrad. Yeah, it was a great experience. I loved it. I did it all. I was an ambassador for the school. I was an RA. Like I worked outside of the school. So I actually was running one of the local Jewish programs, the Sunday school and the Hebrew school. I started as a teacher. And then by the time I graduated, I was already like one of the directors over there. So I was really engaged in the community as well in Austin, which was really fun. A lot of the students didn't need to leave campus, but for me, it was an opportunity to kind of explore the city too. So I had a really great time. I loved Austin, keeping it weird.
Yeah. Was that the saying even back then when you were there?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was always weird. Well,
Oh,
it's a super liberal city in a very conservative state. So, for everyone else, it felt weird. I mean, now that we look back, it probably wasn't that weird, but then at the time in the location, it felt very weird.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you graduated from UT Austin. How do you get to IBM?
So my ex-husband was an IBMer, and so he got me well, actually, I got me an internship, but he gave me the name of the person to contact, and he was very busy. I remember back in the day, we had to like mail it in, right? And I had a phone number for him, but he was never at his desk. So I called maybe, I'm not kidding, 300 times until he answered the phone because I didn't want to leave a message. If I left a message, he was never going to call me back. I'd never get the internship. It would never happen. So I called and I called and I called and I called. And then one time he answered and I'm like, oh my God, it's Odelia. How are you? Yes, yes, I really. And he's like, okay, come in tomorrow. So I came in the next
Now,
day and
now is this IBM headquarters in Boca Raton, Florida?
this is the IBM headquarters. At the time, it was in Endicott, New York.
Okay, so how did you get to New York? Did you
That's
go
where my boyfriend was. He was a New
so
Yorker and he was living in Buffalo. And so I moved to Buffalo to be with him. And then when he graduated college, we both moved to Binghamton, which is right next to Endicott, because he had gotten a position at IBM. And so I was in Endicott. I was getting an MBA, found a job, outside of just, a job. But I really wanted a career and I really wanted it at IBM because at the time, I remember they were paying like it was $9 an hour. And we thought, oh my God, we are so rich. We are
right?
buying ourselves a futon. And we just felt like, and then if you worked overtime, it was time and a half. And we were like, oh my God, $17. What are we going to do with all this money? What are we going to do? We are just, look at us. We're living the high life. I mean, I remember thinking this is just the best thing ever. So we did the math. And if both of us worked at IBM, it was like unimaginable the money that we would be making. We really were like, this has to happen. So it was my mission to get the job at IBM.
That and that's a great story, especially about perseverance, calling 300 times. So
Oh
then you're
yeah.
already in New York, you're up there. Okay, you finally get him on the phone and
Yep.
he says, "Come on in."
Come on in. I go in and they've got me. making copies. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. All the other interns are doing something super cool. And here I am making copies. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to quit. And I remember my ex-husband was like, well, don't do that. Why don't you have a conversation with him first? And I'm like, no, no. My ego was bruised. I was like, you know what? I feel like I've spent too much time and too much energy to be making copies. And he's like, you are an intern. I remember him
Right.
saying, this is what you should be doing. And I was like, well, all right, I'm just going to have the conversation with my department manager. And then I was ready to hand in my badge. I'd been there for a day and a half at best. And so I walked in and I'm like, listen, I can't be making copies. And he's like, oh, no, 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 we don't need you to be making copies. Don't worry. We have people for that. We need to put you on this ledger because I was working at the time for accounts receivable. And they had a missing cent on a ledger. And I don't
Whoa.
know if you know, the ledger is like the books. And back in the day, we didn't have computers.
It was all by hand, right? And like
The year
triplicate?
was 1998, and it was all by hand, and it was done with a pencil because if you make a mistake, you could erase it. And I had to go back like 18 months to find this one penny, which I did. I
You
found
found it. You
Yeah, I
found it.
found it. It took me a very long time. It took me several months to locate it,
Wow.
but we found the penny. And then because I found that penny, they put me on a project to consolidate bulk purchases of foreign currency. So it was kind of a cool project because I was able to save IBM money since, it's very hard
Well, since were you a paid intern or an unpaid intern
I
at this?
was a paid intern.
Okay. So you say, well, I hope you save them money in the future because they spent a ton of money for you to find a penny, right? So think about how much money they lost trying to find that penny.
Well, yeah, but I think in the grand scheme of things, not finding the penny would have been a bigger problem for them,
Okay.
because then it throws off the whole accounting. They
Mm.
have to find that penny to reconcile. There's no, because it's a public company, so they have to open the books, and then, the auditors would have a field day with that. It would be way more expensive for, one of the big auditors to come in and try to find it.
So
Yeah.
so then you would say whoever made the mistake with the penny was the one that cost them the money that they had to spend for you to find the penny. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh, yeah. Yep. So we worked on this project to kind of consolidate foreign currency. So every day we would kind of bulk the money that IBM had to buy in foreign currency to save the money. And it was like a nice $1 million saving project, which to IBM was like a nothing burger, right? They don't care about $1 million. But to me, I got to put it on my resume. And then when I wanted a position with IBM, because I was only an intern, it was much easier for me to get hired because I could say even in a cost group because the corporate world is considered a cost to IBM. They don't generate money typically. I was able to generate over $1 million for IBM, so that was super impressive for my management team. And so I got the position at IBM, and then I started working, as a project manager. Back in the day, we were working on the intranet, which is the IBM's internal website. I did that for a couple of years, and then I started working on external clients. I was considered a delivery project executive, so my back was facing the client and my front was facing to the delivery team. So I still had quite a bit of client interaction, but mostly I was trying to take the client communication and then translate that to the delivery team because the delivery team and the client could not talk. No. That was no
No.
bueno. That would lead to bad things. So the clients would talk to me, and then I would take that information and I would convey it to the delivery team. And hopefully, we got happy clients and happy delivery
And
team.
when you say delivery team, you mean more of the technical team, whether that's
The
what, like like
technical
like the
team.
data scientists, the coders,
Yes.
so you're basically trying to communicate normal people language to these very smart people that are speaking in data and tech terms.
Well, the sales team would go out and the sales team would sell a time machine. They would be like, oh, yeah, we could do this for you. No problem. Yeah, we'll get you to the moon and just give us 3 weeks. And then the delivery team would get the requirements to be like, we don't have this technology. We cannot do this. This is I don't know if you realized, but the year is 2002 and we don't build things like that. Back in the day, our servers, our platforms, everything was like much more antiquated than it is today. So at the time, we would have to kind of cobble up a solution. And in the meantime, I'd have to stall the client from their expectations of a time machine, that just wasn't possible, right? So there was a lot of, it was a lot of middleware, database admins, sysadmins, hands and feet, going on server farms, those types of, they were my people.
Okay. All right. This episode of the Success in South Florida podcast is brought to you by the Rossen Law Firm. We're more than just incredible lawyers. We genuinely care about helping good people when bad things happen. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews and a proven track record of fighting for people in our community. If you need trusted legal help in South Florida, start by calling the Rossen Law Firm today, 754-206-6200. And so as you're progressing through this, now you're in your next role with IBM. What happens next? Do you elevate more? When do they decide to invest in you with your MBA?
Yeah, so IBM, like I said, was a great company. They would invest in anyone who wanted to go to school. Not a lot of people took advantage. So in the evenings, I got my MBA, I got my law degree. They would have paid for just about anything that kind of made sense to the position. So, yeah, it was a wonderful. They actually gave me time off for 3 children. I had 3 kids in the
Wow.
meantime, maternity leave. They gave me time off to run for the New York State Senate in 2006. So they really kind of allowed and honestly, just they were very progressive at the time also in terms of their HR. I was really proud to be associated with an old company that really saw its employees for, the humans that they were instead of just clogs in a machine. So I had a great experience. I can't say enough nice things about IBM.
So Delia, let's talk about your New York State Senate run. This is something that I had no idea about.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
okay. So how did you just get the courage to make that decision?
Well, I honestly didn't know what I was getting into. I find myself to be a gap filler in society. Whenever we have like people on both sides yelling at each other, they don't need me, right? But whenever there's like a silence in just in general, then I'm like, I look around, I'm like, is nobody gonna, then it's gotta be me. So I don't know if you recall, but in 2006, nobody was interested in politics. There was just nobody wanted to run. So I ran as a favor to the party, honestly. And they were like, "You want to run?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I remember I called my husband at the time, and I said, "I think I'm running against, Clinton." And he said, "What?" And I said, "They asked me to run for senator." And he's like, "But she's a Democrat. How could you be running on the Democratic ticket with Clinton?" And I'm like, "I don't know how that's going to work." And then it turns out that I didn't even know, but there was a state Senate.
Not the US Senate,
And he's like,
right?
maybe we need to read up on this before you do it. I said, no, no, I got this, I got this. So it was like they gave me a project manager to help me, because also they realized right away that I can't remember anyone's name or face, right? So they were like, yeah, she needs help. So they gave me this guy, and his job was just to whisper in my ear and say, okay, that's so and so, that's so and so, that's so and so, and to let me know who all these people were because, I was hopeless in that regard. Well, I lost. It was I got maybe I don't know, maybe 42%, which was better than,
That
we
sounds,
thought.
but for a non-traditional politician, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, my incumbent, the guy I ran against, he was around for 22 years when I ran against him, something like that. So he was very entrenched. And my job really was to kind of distract him because he was a deputy majority leader. Right. So he was or deputy minority leader. Anyway, he was very high up. And then after a couple of years later, he was one of the 3 men in the room in New York that makes, he became the Senate majority leader. I mean, right now he's in jail, but at the
Yep.
time he was a big deal. He was a big deal, right? He's a very big deal. There were parks named after him. He was like, everybody loved him. Yep. So it was a great experience. There was a really fun debate at one point. I'm curious, maybe someone would dig it up and show it to me. I loved it. Yeah, I had a great opportunity. I feel everyone should run for office at one point because it really kind of teaches you about about the system and kind of how what it
Well,
feels like.
Odelia, what's the one thing that you learned from that experience? I'm sure you learned a million things. But what's your number one biggest takeaway?
The biggest takeaway was that the highs were really high, but the lows were really low. And what you got to do is you got to stay in the middle. You got to be a 6 or 7. If you get super, if you the waves are the waves. So if you ride the waves and you let your emotions get the better of you, then the lows are going to be very low. Because one day, this amazing, the independent party is going to endorse you. And you're like, oh my God, yeah, the independent party is endorsing me and not, the incumbent. But then the next day, your personal rabbi, endorses
Oh, wow.
incumbent. And you're like, come on, man. Well, politically they have to do that because they know he's going to win. But, the ego gets bruised nonetheless, because it's like, you married me, dude. Like,
I
you
mean,
were there
did
with
you
my
did you
daughter
ask him about it? Maybe he said it was just a sign of from God. God told him who was gonna win or who to
It's all
endorse.
political. It has nothing to do with God.
Oh, even
It's
the
all
rabbi is
politics.
political, huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
So, as long as you keep it in so what I learned is to keep it in perspective. The feel goods feel good, but it's momentary. The bad, they feel bad, but it's momentary. So you can't let it like really impact you. You have a great debate and you feel really amazing. And then the next day, something equally horrible happens. So, yeah.
Hmm, okay. That's so I mean, that's just so interesting to me that somebody who had really no political, background or anything was just like,
I
"Yeah,
didn't even
screw
know
it."
what was yeah, I had no idea there was a state government. I was like, "So wait, I'm gonna go to Washington?" And they're like, "No, they're talking to me about Albany." And I'm like, "Albany feels very cold," like I had no wherewithal, but yeah, it was
Well, and I think that's something that our listeners should really pay attention to. We talk a lot about getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things, avoiding or not really not it's not avoiding. It's pushing through past the fear of failure.
oh yeah.
Because what I've learned is there really is no failure. The failure failure happens when you quit. Other than that, there is no failure because you didn't really lose. You gained a whole lot more. You lost the election, you lost the seat, but I'm sure you gained connections, experience, confidence. And there is that butterfly effect of many things that have happened in your life since, and especially probably the maybe year or two after that, that would not have happened but for this experience, this growth experience, this out of your comfort zone experience. So, Odelia, that is just amazing that you did that because how many other people in that area or in our country would just say, no, 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 I'm not going to do it and they can give a million different reasons. And instead you said, well, sure, why not? Right?
Yeah,
I'll just go for it. Why not?
why not?
And that's, I mean, it's brilliant, right? And that's where the growth happens. So walk us through. I mean, how did you decide to get a law degree? So here you are at IBM, you have your MBA, you run for Senate and lose, you're doing really cool things. But how does that translate into, I want to get my law degree? And did you want to get your law degree just for the experience of
Yeah,
getting a law degree?
pretty
Because it's a
much.
very versatile degree, or did you want to be a lawyer?
I don't think I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't think I had a big, brilliant plan, honestly. I think I see myself as like flowing down the river. And then as I'm flowing down the river, there's like little trails. And I'm like, oh, let's go here, let's go there. And so, kind of wherever the river takes me. So IBM was there, and I really loved to learn. I loved school. I would stay in school until, I just loved learning in general, right? And at the time, I thought school was the best way to learn. So I love to go to on a campus. I loved the classroom. I loved the books. I loved the smell of the books. Like the whole thing about it, I loved it. So I was constantly yearning for another degree, honestly, just to go back to school was amazing for me. So the being lawyer part was just a benefit of going to law school, honestly. I would have gone to medical school if there was an evening program, but there was not. I would have done, I started a PhD just because I could, and then right up until they get to the dissertation, I'm like, wait, what now? I have to do what now?
Yeah.
I'm like, ah, forget it. So for me, it was just about the education. Just to learn was super cool and exciting. And the law school that I only picked it because I knew how to get there. I had been there for um, some event at some point, and I was like, oh, Pace University, I know how to get there. All right, let's just go there. It didn't even occur to me that there were better schools or closer schools or better programs. I was just like, yeah, I know what the car knows how to go there.
So do you consider yourself a forever learner?
I think so. I think most of us are, I don't know how you turn that part off, something that you stub your toe when you learn there's a table there. So we're
Right.
all
Well, yes, but what I've seen, there's a lot of people that just get, they go through life, they get into their career, and they just want to punch in, punch out. And this
Mm,
podcast is obviously not about those people, and there's nothing
right,
wrong with those people. But this podcast is about people that really want to be successful, want to level themselves up, and one of being a forever learner is not one of our 5 distinct core values at the Rossen Law Firm, but it is one of our sub core values. It's a part of our core values. It is a part of our DNA and our culture.
sure,
And we've had some people throughout the years who have come in, and then we've realized that that's not them and they stick out.
right.
So I think what I really want people to listen to this and take away is that you're able to do some amazing, cool things just because you're willing to get out of your comfort zone. You put your mind to it. You say yes. You push through fear, and also you have a true desire to learn and to understand and just better yourself. Because it might be surprising to you, but there's a lot of people don't have those same values or mindsets. So I think
Yeah,
it's really awesome that's part of your DNA, and I believe that's a big part of your success.
I appreciate that. And I guess you're right. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Israel and I moved to America when I was 6. And I learned English by watching TV. Right. So the first 6 months of me being in America, I didn't care what was on, right? It could be The Price is Right or Wheel of Fortune or, Judge Judy or what. I didn't care. I was watching it. I was like, and when we came to America, we lived in St. Louis, Missouri, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Dallas, Texas, which is kind of the Bible Belt. So a lot of what I watched was a lot of evangelical shows, anything. It didn't matter. We only had, in the early 80s, we only had 2 channels on TV, PBS and, whatever, CBS or ABC. So the pickings were slim, but it didn't
Right.
matter. I was up 24/7 watching TV, learning English. So for me, TV became a way to learn, right? So I learn a lot by watching TV. Now I'm not as focused on, school or academics in the form of learning, but I learn an obscene amount by watching reality TV. I know it sounds wrong. It sounds problematic, but just learning social dynamics, learning how women interact together, people in general. It's just, it's like going to the zoo, but instead of looking at the monkeys and seeing, the orangutans, what you're really looking at is the humans and how they interact with each other, with the production crew, with the audience, with the bloggers, the commentators, all those dynamics kind of, super, super interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not on a big reality TV show kick now, but I have been up and down over the years. I missed this summer's Love Island, but I heard it was good.
There
I
you
don't know if you
go.
were I don't know if you were watching that. All right. But then you go to law school. You get a law degree, but you're still at IBM. Really, what was the impetus to say I'm gonna buy these practices? Because you bought those practices while you were still working at IBM, right? At least your
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how are you managing both where you're like, I'm going to buy a law practice, but still be an employee at IBM?
So that was not a brilliant plan on my part. I was dating an IT guy at the time. And after I purchased my law practice from the retiring attorney, my ex boyfriend at the time said, I want to set up a workstation for him. And I said, well, he said he's retiring. He's not coming back. And he's like, well, just in case he comes back to the office, let me just set up a table. What do you care? And we fought about it. And I was like, he said he's retiring. You're bothering me. And he said, I'm doing it anyway. So, despite me saying no, my boyfriend at the time created a workstation for him. And lo and behold, he took time off, went on a cruise, bought a Porsche, but then he came into the
He got
office and
bored.
then
He got bored.
yeah, yeah. And then he was like working 1 or 2 days a week. And then it was 3 days a week. And then it was like every day for a couple of hours. And it became kind of a model for me to buy these law practices from retiring attorneys and then still giving them the space to come into the office and work with clients that they wanted or case that they wanted, but not necessarily have to manage the printer, the ink, the payroll, just do what they wanted as a lawyer, not as a business person. And so by chance, by coincidence, this is how it happened. It was definitely not like a well thought out plan or a vision that I would love to take credit for it, but it became just perchance type of situation that evolved into a business model. And I've purchased 5 law practices fairly successfully from 5 retiring attorneys throughout the years, and it kind of built my practice. So, yeah, sometimes accidents are good accidents.
Oh, absolutely. Right. And it doesn't, you don't have to walk through life knowing that every single thing is planned out. You can be opportunistic when it's the right time, the right opportunity, right time and place. But a lot of lawyers that I know are still so risk averse. So
Mm.
were these, I mean, when you think buy a practice, right? Were these very risky propositions, or was it something that was, pretty simple, straightforward, and kind of a no-brainer for you?
Well, I think in general, when it's time to invest, I'm a person that invests in myself. Like if I have a couple of shekels lying around, chances are I'm going to do something with the building that, I own, or with the practice, or, reinvest in me. So this to me made a lot of sense. Some people invest in real estate, some people invest in the stock market, some people are big into crypto. I invest in me. So the opportunity came, and for me, it felt like, yeah, sometimes, back in, I think it was 2018, I sold a fairly big, house and I downsized at a time where nobody was downsizing, just so that I could buy a law practice and pay off certain debts that I had accumulated. I wanted to pay off some of the debts that I was carrying on my books. So it made a lot of sense for me to downsize, buy a smaller condo, pay cash for it, versus take out a mortgage potential because I didn't carry a mortgage, so I would have to take
Okay.
a mortgage so that I could do the pool, do the roof on this bigger house, and then not be able to pay for a big practice that I wanted to buy and then carry additional debt versus, so for me, it made a lot of sense. And everybody in my life was like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want? And the kids were going nuts. They were like, why do we have to be poor? Why are we poor?
And how
All
old are
their
your children
friends
at this time?
at the time, they were like 8, 9, 10, 11, so their peers were buying bigger homes, their parents were buying bigger homes and moving into these McMansions. And I'm selling our, home and moving into a condo or a townhouse for them. And so it was like a bit of a struggle for the kids. And I was like, well, I'm investing, they don't want to hear I'm investing in me.
Right.
This is a good business decision. This is, so,
No,
but
they don't wanna hear about that at all.
they don't care about that, not even a little. So yeah, for me, it always made a lot of sense to invest in me, and I still do, honestly. Of course, I have some real estate. Of course, I've got some investments, in the market. But ultimately, my favorite investment is in me because I can control the outcome, allegedly or whatever. And I've got more, more at stake, if you will.
Okay, so my favorite investment is in me. I love that. You invested in yourself in an MBA. You invested in yourself in law school. You're a forever learner. Okay. Those are all investments. What other investments have you made in yourself?
Oh, I'm constantly putting money back into the business. Yeah, we recently launched a new tool with your help, actually. You talked to me about Salesforce, and that
Right,
got
yeah.
me, yeah. So I went ahead and I got my own Salesforce tool to automate my consultation process. So now when a client types in their information in our consultation form, that comes to me. We put in the templates that we want for them. We push a button, and then it auto populates their information into my template. So we don't have to retype it and potentially make mistakes. So it's kind of whatever the client gives us, we're able to hone and tweak and work with in our templates seamlessly. So it's been automating that process. So that's been very exciting. I constantly am investing in the building. We recently redid the roof. Working on the AC units, working on the floors. Yeah. So we are always constantly sprucing up the building too. Yeah. I think it's an ongoing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, and I think that's another hallmark of a great successful person, a great leader, a great business person is to
Yeah.
constantly being investing in look, you own the building that houses your law firm.
Yeah.
So now you have multiple streams of income and obviously tax benefits and different things. So that's very smart that you did that. When did you buy that building?
We bought it in 2020. I'd been looking for about 5 years. I would tell my realtor, he'd like show me a building and I'm like, keep driving. He's like, we didn't even get out to see it. I'm like, this isn't it. Keep driving. Poor guy. He earned his his commission. But when I saw this building, the minute I locked eyes with the owner, we were like, oh my God, I love you. He's like, I love you. I want to sell to you. And I'm like, I want to buy from you. So it was like just a perfect fit. It was the perfect building, the perfect size. He had taken care of it so beautifully all these years. And I was really fortunate to find him and the building because we just had like, to me, it's important, not just the end result, but how I get there. Like the closing process to me was super important that, everybody was on the same page and we were all like minded and there wasn't conflict or, there wasn't this, I'm trying to screw him, he's trying to screw me. But we both really thought that it was a beautiful match and we were kind of working towards that. So to me, that's equally as important as getting this beautiful building was how we got there. So yeah, it was just a really good fit. It took a really long time, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I got really lucky in the end.
But that's okay. There's a lot of patience there, and when you know, you know. Just
Yeah.
kind of like, could be dating as well. When you know, you be patient, you see, and when it feels good, right? It's the
That's
right
exactly
time, right
right.
place. So,
Yeah.
okay, absolutely. And so, Odelia, where are you at now, right? It's 2025. Where are you at now with life, your firm? What are kind of the next big thing? What's going on now, and what are the next big things coming ahead for you?
So that's a good question. I find myself to be the victim of my own success at this point. I built a beautiful practice that I'm shackled to. If I'm not here, people are missing me. So my next project, really, in the next 6 months to a year, would be to hire another lawyer. Because right now it's only me, and we've got 8 paralegals and a receptionist. But I think that it makes sense to hire another attorney, maybe a junior associate, so that we can offload some of the clients are calling, people want estate plans, people are dying, people want probates, people want real estate closings, and there's only one of me, and if I'm not here, then the wheels stop churning. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, to have 8 paralegals that can do a lot, you're very fortunate that and you've
Yeah.
built it that way, but there's certain things that only an attorney can
Exactly.
do or
Yeah.
can say, and so I'm sure your paralegals are amazing and they crank out tons of work and make your life so much easier, but I bet you that
Yeah.
associate, that other attorney is going to assuming you make the right hire, that attorney is gonna be amazing for you
Yeah.
because it really will free you up.
Yeah, because I'm very hands-on. So I meet with every client for the consultation meeting. I go over the estate plan with them in detail. So, we talk about every paragraph of the trust, what it means. So it takes up, obviously, as it should, a lot of my time. But then I'm also running the business. So I'm the head of HR, I'm the head of IT, I'm the marketing person, I'm the operations person, I run the building. So it's become that I like my brother called me yesterday and he's like, "Oh, I have a meeting tomorrow morning talking about estate planning." He's a financial planner. He's like, "Do you want to join me?" And I'm like, "Are you crazy? Do you know what my morning looks like?" Or
Right.
my friend was like, "Let's take a day off next week and go to a spa." And I'm like, "You got to book me 3 weeks from today if you
So
want me to take a day off."
yeah, yeah. Oh, I feel you on that. But Odelia, I'm gonna ask you this, right? So when you do make that attorney hire, how are you going to let go?
That's a good question. I'm pretty good at delegating. I happen to be very bossy.
Okay.
So I love to tell people what to do. I'm okay with delegating. I'm not one of those people that has to do it all. I'm a person that will do it all, but I don't really want to do it all. I'm happy with other people doing a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty good at managing, honestly. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, well, that's good. So I am very excited to see how you go through that process when
Me
you get
too,
that
me
attorney,
too,
because I
as
still
I
think it's
stroke
easier
my
said than
hairless
done.
chinchilla.
Yes. Yes, yes, but I think it's very much, it's easier said than done.
Right.
But I wish you all the best. I know you're gonna do an amazing job.
Thank
So,
you, thank
Odelia,
you.
if you had just had to sum up everything that you've learned throughout your amazing career into 2 or 3 things, what are the biggest pieces of advice that you can give to anybody listening to this who wants to better themselves, better their career, be more successful? What would you tell them are some of the biggest keys and things that you've learned in your life?
So, that's a good question. I think I'm gonna, say something that, may or may not be what you're kind of looking for, but I think it's important that you have a good narrative about who you are and what you've done and where you come from. Because truly, the narrative, the story that you tell yourself, kind of determines who you are, where you're at, because something could happen and then you could narrativize it a bajillion different ways, right? You could look at it and say, well, this happened because I'm a crappy person, or this happened because I was meant to learn something, or this happened because I, was a victim and now I'm a hero. Or you could just say sometimes things happen. So there's so many ways to look at an instance or a situation or, even a question. It's important to be mindful of how the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives that we have regarding ourselves, our accomplishment, our capabilities, and that really will determine who you are, where you are, and what you're going to be doing. So that mindfulness is not something that we're always tapped into. Sometimes we're just in it, and it's hard to be like, well, what am I really saying to myself and to others about it?
Very well said. Very well said.
Mm.
So, Delia, what's the best way for people to reach you? If they want to connect,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you get a few people who want you to be their mentor or just
Oh,
connect
I
or
would love that. Yeah,
get some
I
advice.
had great mentors, so I definitely paid forward. My website, the law offices of Odelia Goldberg, ogoldberglaw.com is a really great place to start. It's got all my contact information and my newsletters, my blogs, my videos, and all that good stuff. The consultation form, if you want to see it.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, Delia, thank you so much. I thought this was amazing to really dive deep into all the things that make you so special and all the big things that you've done in your life. And you definitely did not disappoint. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And I can't wait to talk to you some more, another time.
I appreciate you. Take care.
All right. You too.
Bye bye.